In a world where emotions surge like uncontrollable tides, words are hurled in an instant, and everything seems to demand an immediate response, there's a quiet but powerful secret. The best reaction is none at all. Imagine a moment when life throws a challenge your way, a storm of words or actions that feel designed to provoke you. What if instead of fighting back or allowing yourself to be pulled into the drama, you simply chose to remain still, observing without reacting at all? This concept isn't just some distant ideal. It holds the key to peace, emotional freedom, and personal transformation. This practice is rooted in ancient philosophies, spiritual teachings, and practical wisdom from across the ages, reminding us of a simple truth. We are not our reactions. In a world dominated by instant gratification and knee-jerk responses, not reacting can seem almost counterintuitive. We are taught from a young age that to be strong means to stand up, fight back, and defend ourselves. Whether through social media, our workplaces, or even within our families, the expectation is that when someone wrongs us or challenges us, we must act, respond, or retaliate. However, this very automatic reaction is often what causes most of our suffering. Reactions are typically the result of unconscious patterns. Think of how quickly our hearts race, or how easily our minds react when something happens that we don't like or when we feel threatened. Our first instinct is to fight back or defend our position. These reactions arise from the brain's automatic programming, often a result of past experiences, fears, or unresolved emotions. Many don't realize that these reactive patterns are rarely conscious decisions. They are conditioned responses that over time shape how we experience and engage with the world. When we react, we become slaves to these patterns. Our emotions take over, and we lose control. It's as though we've handed over our power to external circumstances, allowing them to dictate how we feel, think, and behave. We might believe that reacting gives us control or allows us to assert ourselves, but in truth, it is the surrendering of our inner peace. When we engage with a situation through reaction, we perpetuate the cycle of conflict and tension, often without realizing that we're adding fuel to the fire. Consider the wisdom of great teachings across the world. In Taoism, for example, there's the idea of Wu Wei, which translates roughly to effortless action or non-action. This doesn't mean doing nothing. Rather, it is about allowing things to unfold naturally without forcing or resisting. The wise Taoist sage knows that forcing a reaction or struggling against life's events leads only to exhaustion and further conflict. Instead, they align themselves with the natural flow of things, choosing not to react to every impulse or situation, but instead to observe and respond from a place of deep calm. Similarly, Buddhist philosophy teaches the importance of mindfulness and detachment. To react in anger or frustration is to remain attached to the idea that we should always have control over how others behave or how the world unfolds. However, true freedom, according to Buddhist teachings, lies in letting go of attachment. When we release our need to control, we open ourselves to a higher state of being, one that is peaceful, accepting, and calm in the face of any challenge. Even in Christian teachings, we are reminded of the importance of turning the other cheek. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, if someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. This is not a call for weakness or submission. Rather, it is an invitation to transcend the natural human impulse to strike back. By not reacting in anger, We create space where love and compassion can thrive instead of resentment and conflict. In this way, not reacting becomes an act of strength, an assertion of inner peace over external chaos. Why then is it so hard for us to choose non-reaction in our daily lives? The difficulty in non-reaction partly stems from our human nature and the emotional triggers that lurk just beneath the surface. When someone insults us, criticizes us, or challenges our beliefs, we feel the urge to defend ourselves immediately. Our egos rise up demanding justice and recognition. However, this response often escalates the situation, feeding into the very drama we wish to avoid. To truly embrace the power of not reacting, we must first understand the role of the ego. The ego thrives on conflict. It wants to be right, to be heard, and to protect itself at all costs. In this way, the ego feeds off of our emotional responses. But when we choose not to engage with our emotions, when we detach from the ego's need to react, we break free from the cycle of conflict and allow ourselves the space to respond with wisdom, compassion, and understanding. It's important to note that non-reaction doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean that we should allow ourselves to be treated poorly or that we should ignore situations that require action. Instead, it means that we approach life with a sense of stillness, choosing to respond from a place of clarity rather than emotion. By doing so, we allow ourselves time and space to choose the best course of action instead of being swept up by the current of the moment. Imagine, for a moment, a conversation where you are being criticized or attacked. The old you might have immediately jumped into defensive mode, trying to justify your actions and perhaps even getting angry in return. But what if instead of reacting, you took a deep breath, observed the situation with awareness, and chose not to respond in the heat of the moment? In that pause, you would allow the other person's words to pass by without taking them personally. You could then choose a more measured, thoughtful response, free from the intensity of your initial emotional reaction. As we practice this non-reactive state, we find that it becomes easier to navigate the ups and downs of life. The more we resist the urge to react, the more we create space within ourselves for peace and clarity. Over time, we realize that true power lies not in reacting to every stimulus, but in the choice to rise above it, to meet life's challenges with grace and calm. Now, let us take a step deeper and look at how this practice of non-reaction can transform our lives, create a deeper sense of peace, and ultimately lead to true freedom. It's easy to understand the value of non-reaction on an intellectual level. We see the wisdom in not allowing our emotions to control us, in resisting the urge to lash out, and in refusing to become embroiled in conflict. But how do we actually put this into practice when life presents us with moments that seem impossible to handle without reacting? The truth is, we often find ourselves in situations where reacting feels almost inevitable. A person insults us, a colleague undermines us, or a friend disappoints us. In that split second, our body tenses, our hearts race, and the urge to react surges like a tidal wave. In these moments, choosing non-reaction can feel like an almost superhuman feat. However, this is the moment when we have the greatest opportunity to practice the power of not reacting. Non-reaction doesn't require us to suppress our emotions or deny our natural feelings. It doesn't mean we pretend we're unaffected by the world around us, or allow others to walk all over us. Rather, it is about choosing how we respond to those emotions and impulses. The key to mastering this is learning to pause when we feel triggered. When our emotions threaten to take over, the first step is to take a deep breath. A deep, slow breath grounds us in the present moment. This simple act of breathing creates a pause, a brief moment in which we can detach from the automatic response of our minds and begin to observe our feelings from a place of awareness. In the sacred space between stimulus and reaction, we gain the power to decide how we will respond. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can choose to act with intentionality, calm, and wisdom. This moment of pause is where true power lies. When we do not react, we break free from the chains of automatic responses and take control of our emotional state. The ancient Stoics, for example, understood the importance of this pause. They taught that while we cannot control external events, we can always control how we respond to them. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This powerful idea is rooted in the concept that we cannot always control the world around us, but we can always control our inner world, the way we perceive and respond to situations. When we stop reacting automatically, we tap into the wisdom of our higher self, the quiet voice of reason and understanding that exists beneath the noise of our emotions. From this place of stillness, we can choose to respond with love, compassion, or even silence. Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. Consider the story of the Buddha and the angry man. One day, an enraged man approached the Buddha, hurling insults. Instead of responding, the Buddha remained calm, looking at the man with compassion. After a long moment of silence, the man realized that his words had no effect on the Buddha and began to calm down. Finally, he asked, "Why do you not respond to my anger?" The Buddha smiled and replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man paused, understanding that the gift of anger had been offered to him, but it was his choice whether or not to accept it. This simple but powerful story highlights the essence of non-reaction. The Buddha did not engage with the man's anger, not because he lacked feelings, but because he knew that responding would perpetuate suffering for both parties. Instead, he remained still, and in doing so, he showed the man the power of letting go. The power of non-reaction lies in the fact that it allows us to step outside of the drama. When we react, we become part of the narrative. We are swept up in the conflict, and the energy of the situation controls us. But when we choose not to react, we create space between ourselves and the situation. We no longer become entangled in the emotions and thoughts that others seek to impose upon us. We remain anchored in our own truth, grounded in peace. It is about choosing to respond from a place of clarity and mindfulness, rather than from a place of unconscious reactivity. In fact, non-reaction often leads to far more powerful actions when they are required. When we are not swept up in the emotional storm, we can see the situation more clearly and act with wisdom and intention. The practice of non-reaction also allows us to cultivate compassion and empathy. When we respond to others with understanding, rather than with judgment or defense, we create an opportunity for healing and connection. Instead of meeting aggression with more aggression, we can meet it with the peaceful energy of someone who understands that all humans are struggling in their own way. Non-reaction allows us to hold space for others without becoming overwhelmed by their emotions. This might be difficult to grasp, especially in moments when we feel personally attacked or misunderstood. However, it's important to understand that the act of not reacting doesn't mean we are condoning bad behavior or allowing ourselves to be treated poorly. It simply means we are not allowing ourselves to be dragged into an emotional battle that doesn't serve us. We remain centered, calm, and open. And from this place, we can choose to respond in a way that brings peace rather than conflict. There is another layer to the practice of non-reaction, how it affects our inner world. Every time we react emotionally to something, we strengthen the emotional charge associated with that situation. When we choose not to react, we gradually free ourselves from the emotional grip of the situation, reducing its power over us. We free ourselves from the emotional bondage that comes with constant reactivity. This liberation is profound. Over time, we begin to feel lighter, more peaceful, and more in control of our own emotional state. How does this power translate into the broader world around us? How does choosing non-reaction affect our relationships, our work, and our sense of purpose? The ripple effect of non-reaction is simple yet profound. When we choose not to react, we change the way we relate to others. We no longer approach the world with defensiveness, aggression, or a need to control. Instead, we engage with others from a place of openness and understanding. Think of it this way. When someone behaves aggressively toward you, your natural impulse might be to meet aggression with aggression. But if you choose non-reaction, your response will change the dynamic. Rather than feeding into the conflict, you become an anchor of peace. You do not take their energy personally, and in doing so, you leave space for them to either calm down or see things differently. It takes courage to resist the urge to lash out when we feel hurt or provoked. But this strength comes from knowing that we do not need to prove ourselves through conflict. We do not need to be right, nor do we need to engage in the drama. By remaining calm and centered, we show others that we do not need external validation to know our worth. We demonstrate that our peace is far more important than the need to defend or explain ourselves. In many ways, non-reaction is like a mirror. When you stop reacting, you reflect the energy of calm back to the other person. Just like a mirror reflects the image of whoever stands before it, your calm response may, over time, encourage others to soften, slow down, and reconsider their actions. This effect is especially profound in relationships where misunderstandings and emotional outbursts often lead to greater friction. By holding space for peace and not reacting to anger, you create the possibility for healing, growth, and understanding. Of course, there will be moments when non-reaction is tested more deeply. It is easy to remain calm in the face of minor irritations. But what about when someone close to us betrays our trust or when we face a real injustice? Non-reaction in these moments becomes even more crucial. When we face betrayal, for example, our emotions might scream for justice or retribution. However, reacting out of hurt or anger often leads to more suffering. Choosing non-reaction doesn't mean we ignore our emotions or condone bad behavior. It simply means we are choosing to process our emotions with mindfulness, not letting them control us. We may still experience hurt, disappointment, or anger, but we understand that acting on those emotions in the heat of the moment often leads to more regret. Non-reaction gives us the space to reflect before we act, to see the situation from a broader perspective. In times of betrayal or injustice, choosing to take a step back might actually lead us to a wiser, more empowered response. It could mean confronting the issue calmly, setting boundaries without aggression, or walking away from a toxic situation. The key is that non-reaction helps us not be driven by knee-jerk emotional responses, but instead to make decisions that align with our true selves, our values, and our long-term peace. One of the most beautiful aspects of non-reaction is how it leads us to master our own emotional landscape. When we stop reacting to external triggers, we gain a deeper understanding of our inner workings. We start to recognize what truly sets us off and why. Over time, this self-awareness helps us heal unresolved wounds and shed old emotional patterns that no longer serve us. Take the example of forgiveness. Often, we feel that forgiving someone is a sign of weakness, that it means we're excusing their bad behavior. However, when we choose non-reaction, we come to realize that forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about us. Forgiveness is a way of releasing the hold that negative emotions have over us. It is a way of freeing ourselves from the past, from grudges, and from the need to carry emotional burdens that drain our energy. By choosing non-reaction in the face of wrongdoing, we begin to heal ourselves, creating space for love, light, and peace to fill our hearts. This sense of inner healing is not limited to our emotional life. It also extends to our physical health. Research in the fields of psychology and holistic health has shown that unresolved emotions, particularly those triggered by constant reactivity, can manifest as physical ailments. Chronic stress, anxiety, and emotional turmoil can lead to a range of health problems, from headaches and digestive issues to heart problems and sleep disturbances. By practicing non-reaction, we reduce the emotional charge that contributes to these physical imbalances, promoting a healthier and more harmonious life. But the benefits of non-reaction are not limited to personal well-being. They extend into our spiritual journey as well. Many spiritual traditions teach that true liberation comes when we are no longer enslaved to our reactions, and when we can move through the world with peace, acceptance, and understanding. Non-reaction is, in essence, a form of freedom. Freedom from the chains of our habitual emotional responses. Freedom from the need to control or fight. And freedom to simply be. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness is a prime example of this. Mindfulness teaches us to observe our thoughts and emotions without attachment, allowing them to come and go without judgment. In mindfulness, there is no need to react to every thought or feeling that arises. Instead, we simply observe and let go. This practice of non-reaction leads to deep inner peace and allows us to experience the present moment without the distortions of our habitual reactivity. In the end, non-reaction is not about withdrawing or becoming passive. It is about finding our center in the midst of chaos and choosing to respond with intention, not impulse. It is a tool for self-mastery, a path to healthier relationships, and a gateway to a deeper spiritual connection. By embracing non-reaction, we tap into a wellspring of inner peace that allows us to navigate life's challenges with grace, wisdom, and love. It is, in essence, a form of freedom. The freedom to be at peace no matter what the world throws our way. So, the best reaction is none at all, because in that space of stillness and non-reaction, we discover our true power, and with it, the ability to transform not only our own lives, but the world around us.